All right, so I'm going to walk through an example of what we need, and we actually need it right now because we're dealing with this situation right now. So we've placed an order with our manufacturer. We didn't have a good math to base our decision of how many units we want to order. So we just ordered an amount that we thought makes sense. So it would be great to be able to have a better um, data driven decision making process that tells us, hey, it makes sense to order this quantity because of these factors. So these are some of the factors that I know of. There could be some others that I'm missing, but that was just on how many we should order for production. But let's just use that example. I believe we have I believe currently we have about 3,000 units that, okay, that's view only. Let me go to, how many to, okay. So that was just the amount that was produced. Now we need to decide how many of those units we want to send to our warehouse because we have the option of keeping a certain amount, maybe half or whatever, at the factory for a later shipping. And why would we do that? Because the factory would let us store it there for free, but at the warehouse, the fulfillment center warehouse will charge us $40 per month per pallet. So let's just say that we have, I'm just going to say we have 8 pallets, okay? Um, so let's take maybe one scenario here, okay? And imagine that, let me just duplicate this so I can, all right, so let's just say that it goes to the US and cost per unit, it's already, like the cost per unit is already, in this case, irrelevant because it's too late, we have a specific amount. Okay, we've already, like the time to manufacture, that is like those can help us dictate how many we should manufacture and how often, etc. Now we need to decide on how to ship them based on the cost of shipping and how many to ship. So, okay, I guess maybe what would be helpful is to understand what questions we want to answer. So, one is how many units to order, how often, how many to ship, um, what shipping service is best. I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so those are some questions that I would like us to have concrete answers based on math for. So, how many units to order, how often, it's probably going to be based on our sales. But after we kind of have the answers to these questions, we can potentially go back and reverse engineer or change what we think is the best option here. And let me give a few scenarios so that it's easier to understand. So let's say we've just ordered 3,000 units and we've just ordered 3,000 units, and maybe we could have ordered more or less. Now, we have different ways or different options, I guess, available to us. One option is to ship everything to our warehouses immediately, and the other option is to keep some of them at the factory. But at least ordering a larger quantity helped us negotiate potentially a better price per unit. How often? Um, okay, actually, maybe I should mention what are the relevant factors. So, in this case, how many units to order? One factor is going to be cost per unit because the more we buy, the better price we get. The other factor is the cost of money because the more units we buy, the more money we have to spend right now. And the money is costing us, let's say, 12% per year. So if we order 1,000 units more just to sit in the warehouse, potentially they'll sit in the factory even. So at the warehouse, we'll be paying for them for storage. At if the inventory is sitting in the factory, we've just spent money that we shouldn't. So then maybe we can say, okay, well, if we order 2,000 units and they cost us, let's say, $20, or let's say $22, okay? And then if we buy 3,000 units, we can pay 19 and a half. It's just an example. It's not necessarily accurate, but then we say, okay, well, if those 1,000 units are just going to stay in the warehouse for 3 months waiting, so we're going to say, okay, we have 1,000 units. I'm going to actually make a formula here. So we have 1,000 units multiplied by, let's say that it's only $19.5. Okay. I'm actually also going to remove the price difference of the other 2,000. So the other 2,000, I've just saved myself $2.50. So I have this amount of money that I've just spent more than I needed because I bought 3,000, although I just needed two to get a better price. So now I have 14,000 and I'm paying 12% a year on them. So a year it's going to cost me $1,700, just the cost of money. So the question is it worth it? Now, this is for a year. Maybe it's only going to sit there for an extra 3 months. So it's only going to cost me $435. And then you can say, okay, well, $435 is a small price to pay compared to the savings. If in this case, the savings was $2.50, okay, $2.50 on the first 2,000. So for $435, I saved 5,000. But if the price here was different and it was only like 30 cents difference, then it cost me $435 to save $600. It's a different situation now, especially if it's only 15 cents. Now I'm spending more than I'm saving. So that's an example of how many to order based on the cost per unit and the cost of money. What other factors could there be here? Yeah, I guess the time of transit. Just to have enough available and have an option to like, okay, what happens if it takes them longer to manufacture or longer to transit? All of those things we need to kind of have a margin of error in place so that we don't run into a situation where we don't have stock, we lose sales, we have to compensate customers, etc. So how often? I guess one big factor that should be included here is sales, meaning how often and how many units we sell. So obviously, sales is going to be here. How often? All of these apply for how often we want to order. Um, Definitely time of transit. Time of transit is also relevant here. Um, okay, how many to ship in here? It's when we worry about cost of transit, time of transit as well. Oh, sorry, we should not have. We already had this covered, so should have remembered that. All right, what shipping service is best? So, for example, I guess we can discuss how often. No, that's pretty clear. Angelica, would you say that's pretty clear? Meaning, how often to order to answer that question? Is it pretty clear what goes into that?
It's not really. Somehow it's vague.
Okay. So, how often? Let's discuss the options first. We can potentially order 1,000 units every 2 months, or we can order, um, let's say, 1,500 every 3 months, or we can order 3,000 every 6 months. So we need to optimize for cost. So once you calculate how much money we'll spend, the cost per unit we'll get on making larger orders or more frequent orders, we need to be able to basically have a field that we fill up and we say, okay, for example, let's say we have all of these factors and we say, okay, we have option A, option B. Okay, so what I want to be able to have is the ability to enter numbers here and then get an output saying, yep, this is what option one is going to cost you, this is what option two is going to cost you, and something that makes it clear that, okay, that's the optimal. Now, this is just to compare the cost between the two. It doesn't necessarily, like, this will be a manual way to get to the conclusion or the understanding of how many units we should order or how often. And if that is still not clear, I'm going to try and give an example. So let's say we have, I've, Angelica, is it fair to say that this was clear when I gave the examples? Or,
It's clear now.
okay, I'm talking about the how many units. The how, let's give an example on how often. Okay, so option A, let's say, is going to be, maybe I should add quantity here. Let's say option A is 1,000. Um, hmm, yeah, and we need to, I guess, to also add frequency. See, I don't know if that's necessarily the right way to calculate, or this should be in the same kind of like table or spreadsheet, but I'm trying to explain our needs so that a person watching this can help us better. So, frequency, let's say we said every 2 months, so we'll say 60 days. And option two would be 1,500 every 90 days. So then I'll be calculating, okay, in this case, what we'll pay per unit, I'm just going to give random numbers, okay? It's going to be 19.5, and in this case, it's going to be 19.2. Then the cost of money here we'll have to calculate because we'll say, okay, well, if it's going to be this amount multiplied by this amount, and let's say we say that in a whole year, based on the demand, let's say that the demand is clear, okay, and the demand is, I'm just going to give an example of 4,000 per year, or let's say 6,000 for 365 days, okay. So if I know the demand and I'm wanting to calculate the cost of money, I'll probably say, okay, well, the cost of money is going to be 0.12% a year multiplied by how much money I'll spend having to do this, okay. Um, let's see, if I do 0.12 multiplied by 1,000 pieces multiplied by 19.5 dollars, okay, and let's say I'm gonna have to do it, since it's every 60 days, I'm gonna have to do it 6 times a year. So in here, it's gonna be 19.2. And since we're doing it every 90 days, I'm only gonna have to do it 4 times. So you can see that the cost of money,
Should it be 1.12?
um, no,
Oh, it's just the interest?
yeah.
Oh, got it.
So then we need to say, okay, well, how long it takes to transit. We need to kind of make sure that we also, so this is just the cost um, side of things, but we also have to make sure that we meet the demand. So, and that we don't ever get too close. Like we should have at least a month buffer to allow for, you know, a longer either time to manufacture or time to transit. So that was an example on how to calculate how often. Let's talk about what shipping service is best. So uh, that is kind of like easier because we pretty much need to say, okay, how long is this shipping cost going to be? Okay, actually, another thing that will have to be here is going to be the cost of storage. Sorry. I'm gonna start with how many to ship. That is actually first, and it's more important. So now we are in this scenario, and we have option one. We're now going to be just discussing how many to ship. So we can either ship all 3,000, or we can ship half. Okay, so first thing we need to make sure is how long will this last us for if we ship this. Um, so in this case, it's going to be just once, and that's going to be twice. Um, let's say twice and X days apart. Okay, so obviously in here, we need to talk about cost of transit. So that obviously depends on the type of shipping, but let's just say we chose the best type and we say, okay, we have this cost of transit is going to be $3,500 and it's going to be 21 days versus, and it's probably going to be in like in here, we probably have to be discussing like having two different sets of. So let's just say in this case we need, and it is the situation we're in right now. We need our chargers there ASAP. So because we need the delivery to be there as soon as possible, if we go with option A, we'll have to ship all of them express. So let me keep doing this. Sorry, I have a slight OCD. Okay, so I'm just gonna make it basic. It's not necessarily like that in the real world, but in this option, we'll have to ship everything express because we need the items there ASAP. And let's say it's 21 days. And let's say that the cost of express is 3,500, or let's say 6,500, just to have a bigger number. And then let's say that option B would be okay. Option B would be to ship a small amount express, and that's going to cost us. I'm going to use 6,500 multiplied by 60%. So it's going to be a little bit more than half because the larger the order is, typically the better the price becomes per cubic meter. Okay, but we'll enter actual numbers when we want to calculate this. So let's say that this is the, sorry, this was supposed to be here. So, and then we'll ship economy, let's say 90 days later. Okay, so then let's talk about the cost of storage, which is, so we talked about the time of transit. Okay, so let's say this is 21 days and this is 45 days. And let's say that this is potentially going to be, I don't know, 2,100. So potentially this is cheaper because this is now economy and this is together 6,000 versus 6,500. But then let's think about the, for the life of this inventory lasting in our warehouse. Let's think if we ship it, if it's $40 per pallet per month, and let's say that, um, make it easy, and let's say 3,000 units is 10 pallets. Okay, which means that this is 5 pallets and 5 pallets. So if we know that the demand is 6,000 for 365 days, then we should be able to calculate with a formula and say, okay, how much are we going to be paying per pallet per month? Because the first month is going to be 10 pallets times $40. That's the first month. Okay, and let's say that if we said that, let's if we said that 3,000 is 10 pallets, okay, then that means that each 300 units is one pallet. We need 6,000 units for 365 days. So let's say 6,000 divided by 12. So 500 divided by 300. So let's say we sell 1.6 pallets per month. Then this is going to be, depending on the time frame, right? If we say that 300 units is going to last us, let's just say 6 months, because it's half of what we need for the whole year, we can then calculate and say, okay, if this is going to last us 6 months, then we're going to be paying 400 plus, um, it's going to be 10 minus 1.6 the second month, right? Multiplied by 40. Then it's going to be, 10 minus 3.2. Obviously, there's a better way to make this formula. But what I'm trying to say is this is how we'll calculate how much we'll pay per storage in this case. And then in this case, it's going to be a cheaper storage. We'll at least we'll save 5 pallets per month for at least 95 plus 23 days, 24 days, right? Because this will be delivered in 21 days, and this will be delivered 45 days plus 90 days instead of being delivered only after 21 days. So we have 120 some, no, 130, whatever it is. Okay. We have all of these days that we didn't pay storage for. And then, based on all of those factors, we can say, okay, we should ship 1,000 now, 2,000 later. We will be able to put those options potentially manually based on what the factory allows us to keep there, based on different costs of transit. But this is what I'm trying to answer when I'm saying how many to ship. Angelica, was this more clear now?
It's clear now.
Okay. So I'm not going to continue this. This is becoming a longer video, but I'm what we want from the person helping us build this system is not just say, oh, this is what you need, I'll give you that. I want the person to look into that and say, actually, I am an expert in the industry and I want to improve your thought process and add this, and that. And hey, here are the best practices in the world of inventory management. So please also, you know, suggest things to improve the things that we may not include here because there are some best practices that we don't know about. So this was just a quick example on the charger ordering. I think it's the most complex one because it has the biggest amount of factors that has to be taken in consideration. It's going to be a lot easier with the demand calculation for fulfillment, or not fulfillment, replenishment of parts at the warehouses, parts that are being fabricated, etc. I'm going to stop the video here. Thank you so much for watching.